Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy, the Yoda, and today we're going to be talking about GANYU. GANYU is about 7.5 days away, so probably Wednesday or Tuesday of next week we're going to get our hands on her finally. And I am going to be getting her, but I'm not really going to be going for constellations, to be honest with you. I'll probably go for Constellation 2, but that'll be it, just because it gives me another charge of her E, which I think is pretty damn useful. And I'm not going to talk about her whole DPS potential in this video. Today I just wanted to talk about what my thought process is for building her and what I am planning to do with her. Holy shit, that's a good arm. Damn. Wonder what else you can do with that arm. I just wanted to go over the artifacts and weapons that I'm going to be using for her, and also what teams I'm going to be using her on, both for support and for main DPS. So I just thought we'd get into it. So as most of you guys know, she is a charge shot focused character. Most of her damage will come from her fully charged shots, which have a level 2 charge to them. Wait, what? Bro, I don't got time for you right now. Anyway, because of that, I think the Amos bow is going to be the best weapon to use on her. You don't really need a whole lot of crit rate when you're using a weapon like this, or sorry, a character like this, because you can just shoot the weak spots and you're pretty much guaranteed a crit. So crit rate's only really going to help with your abilities, which in her case is pretty decent still, just because her ulti lasts for so long. It's going to deal a decent amount of damage over time, like as in total. But the main bulk of her damage will be from the charge shot, so you don't really need to stack as much crit rate on your artifacts. But crit rate is always a welcome addition, I guess. But for her, I think crit damage is definitely the way to go. And because you're going to be hitting those weak spots, the Amos bow is just the perfect match. It gives you attack percentage substat. I wish this was, if this was crit damage, this would be ridiculous, but it gives you attack damage substat. Sadly, it has less base attack than the Skyward, for example. I think the Skyward's also going to be a pretty decent option because it gives you that physical damage AoE on top of the cryo AoE that she already deals. So if you build her, or you have some sort of Electro on your team, for example, if you're building her alongside Lisa. However, like I said, because the crit rate substat is kind of negligible here, I do believe that the Amos bow is going to be the best option for her. If you don't have the Amos bow, especially if you don't have it rank 5, you're definitely going to want to use Sharpshooter's Oath because you probably have a million of these. I guarantee you can get a max refinement one, and this does give crit damage as a substat, and it gives you a shitload of damage against weak spots. The key difference here is that this only increases your damage versus crit spots. This increases just your overall damage. So for enemies that don't have a very easy to hit weak spot, or if you're just bad and you miss, then this thing will be a lot better than this. So this one has a little bit of a higher skill ceiling. This one has a much lower skill floor. And this also makes GANYU easier to build because you get crit damage as a substat. So these two weapons are just undoubtedly going to be the best ones to use for her. Is it undoubtedly? Or indubitably. There you go. However, if you're going to be using her as a support, which is how I'm probably going to end up using her, you're not really going to use your charge shots a whole lot. This thing will still have value because it gives you crit damage as a substat, but I personally think that the stringless and the sacrificial bow will have more value. This will allow you to get more ultis off, and it'll also give you another charge of your E, which is going to be really good, especially if you don't get constellations, because this is essentially just giving you a free constellation too. And then if you do actually end up going for constellations, you essentially have 3 casts of your E, which is basically just like sucrose. You just get so much energy back with the energy recharge substat on this that it's going to be really good. But if you don't have this and have a stringless, this is also going to be a pretty good option because it's going to make your ulti deal more damage and also going to give you EM. In the off chance, you don't really want to be proccing the reactions with GANYU unless it's a superconduct comp. If you're going to be running her alongside Razor or Lisa, for example, then you're definitely going to want the stringless instead of the sacrificial. But if you're going to be running her in a melt comp, like alongside Klee or Diluc, and eventually probably Hu Tao, then you don't really want to use stringless because the increased EM won't really come into play because you're not going to be proccing the reactions with her. So for main DPS, this is your whale option, and this is your free-to-play option. And then for support, you have these two as your options, and this as your free-to-play option. So the reason why I recommend the Raven Bow is because if you're going to be using her as a support, and you're going to be using her in a melt comp, the enemies will be affected by Pyro, so this bonus will come into play most of the time. And the EM is kind of wasted, so you can use either the Sharpshooter's Oath to get the crit damage substat, or you can just use this one for the damage increase. Either one is fine. I don't think this will come into play because as support GANYU, you won't really be doing a whole lot of damage, so it doesn't really matter which one you pick. I would personally just go with this because it's just a flat damage increase, and if you're not going to be building her for crit, you're not really going to be making any use of this. But this is still okay-ish, I would say. Alright, now let's talk about her artifact. So as you can see, since Amber is the only other charge shot focused character in the game, that's why I'm using her as a sheep for my Ganyu artifacts. And again, if you're going to be using her as a main DPS, this is definitely the set that you're going to want to go for, which is 4-piece Wanderer's Troop. If she's going to be your main DPS, you are probably going to be proccing reactions with her a lot of the time, and even if she's not the one that's causing them, sometimes she will be. So the increased elemental mastery will come into play some of the time, but the main reason why you want this is because it's going to increase the damage of your charge shots by 35%. Now, this is whether you hit that headshot or you don't. This is just a flat 35% increase. This is the same thing as using like a rust, but for your charged attacks. Now, as for the artifact main stats, like I said, you don't really want a whole lot of crit rate because you aren't really going to need it if you're going to be hitting those headshots. So you want as much attack percentage and crit damage as possible on all of your pieces. So you're going to want as attack damage and crit damage on your flower and your feather, obviously, because you can't really worry about the main stats for those. And then for the main stat on your timepiece, you're going to want attack, obviously, and try to get crit damage here as well. I don't really have like another piece that has attack percentage that I can give her right now, so I'm just using this one. But if I eventually get a better one, then I'll just swap it over. For your cup, you're obviously going to want a cryo damage bonus main stat artifact because she deals, well, a lot of cryo damage. And again, just try to get crit damage. This one, unfortunately, it does have attack percent and EM, but it does not have crit damage on this. Now again, crit rate is not bad. You know, you're not going to be mad about getting crit rate because her abilities still need to crit, but because most of your damage is going to be coming from your charge shots, this isn't really going to come into play a lot of the time, so getting this is nice, but it's not really a priority. I will be making a more detailed guide after she comes out and I've actually have been able to play with her, but for now, like I said, crit rate is just good, but not optimal. So, naturally, you're going to want a crit damage hat. Luckily, this one does have a little bit of crit rate and the attack percentage on it, so I'm pretty much good to go there. But if you can, just opt for crit damage, double attack rolls in the passives, and some energy recharge as well. Now, for support Ganyu, this is going to be completely useless. You still would want the cryo damage cup, but for everything else, you're pretty much just going to want to use 2 pieces of Blizzard Strayer and 2 pieces of Noblesse as support Ganyu, because you're just going to be there for proccing reactions and for applying Elemental, and her ulti lasts a really, really long time, and that's why I think that this is going to be better than 4-piece Blizzard Strayer, because your ulti, like I said, lasts a pretty long time, so increasing that damage by 20% for all those 15 seconds is going to rack up quite fast. So if you can put some crit into your artifacts, get to like 40% or something like that, I think that's pretty decent enough. I don't think you need to go hella overboard and run 4-piece Blizzard Strayer. Definitely if you're not going to use her for main DPS, because holy crap. If anything, you could also run 2-piece Blizzard Strayer, but then also run Scholar or Exile for the energy recharge, which would be pretty nice. And if anything, if you don't feel like you're actually going to get a whole lot of damage out of her with this, you could just run 4-piece Instructor or 4-piece Exile or Scholar and just get some energy recharge in your kit, because you're pretty much just going to want to use her for her ulti and her E. Alright, now let's talk about team comps. So I've shown you guys Amber and Diona here. This isn't really the team that I'm going to run with her. Another teammate that I think is going to be really good is Xiangling, because she can proc melt very, very quickly. And since they both apply the elements very fast and in a very large area, they're just going to demolish crowds. And the same thing with Lisa. Lisa is basically just like a she's basically just like an Electro Xiangling. She's going to decrease enemies' defenses, she's going to hit a lot of enemies at the same time, and a very, very large area of effect, so pretty much just a match made in heaven. So if you want to run her alongside Ganyu, and then use, like, I don't know, Skyward Harp, then that would be pretty viable as well. Naturally, Venti is going to be really good with Ganyu. He's just kind of good with everybody right now. I also think Zhongli is going to be amazing for Ganyu, because if you're bad or if you play on console or on mobile, you can just use his ulti to basically CC all the enemies, and then you can't miss your charge shots on them. So it's going to be pretty funny to do that, but I unironically think that this is pretty good. Another character that I think is going to be really good with her is Mona, because again, she has a big AoE ulti that applies Hydro, so it's going to freeze pretty much everybody around you, and then you can just shatter them with somebody else on your team. But for the most part, her and Ganyu, I think we're going to be really good together. Now, as for Ganyu support, I think she's going to be an amazing support for Diluc, because obviously he's just going to proc melt 24/7. I also think that she's going to work really well with Razor because she can apply cryo to a very large area and then he can just proc superconduct and go to town. I also think that she's going to be really good alongside cryo, carry Kea and Chongyun, because again, they just apply cryo so effectively. She's just going to be fantastic at that for giving the resonance. And that's pretty much it. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed this quick little guide. I feel like most of this stuff is pretty obvious, but I still just wanted to make a video about it and tell you guys my thought. Wait, what? Oh, Amber Constellations, I forgot about that. Anyway, I just wanted to make this video and just talk about it with you guys and let you know what my thought process is going to be going into GANYU next week, and hopefully I have helped you reach a decision as well, or at least affected your thought process somewhat. If anything, if you guys have any questions or doubts, just go ahead and leave them in the comment section down below, or join the discussion on my Discord. Want to give a quick shout out to my patrons. Thank you for your continued support, and I will see you guys later. Take care.